Where we live, people still celebrate a rich culture that associates wakefulness with being immersed in the activity of a current. They swim, float with coolers of beer buoyed to their rafts, kayak, canoe, fly fish, and put their lawn chairs out into the river to cool off all summer. They are occasionally still baptized, born again, in the river. Better still, the New River, the second oldest river in the world. River life is a humbling, collaborative process that honors higher laws because it requires us to move through the landscape with current.
New water management technologies will be a key part of the comprehensive effort needed to meet the state's water supply challenges.
We want to solve the problems that we have here in the state. And yesterday it was water scarcity and a drought that was so significant that it redefined the drought of record in many areas within the state, although officially I think it's actually now the second worst drought on record.
These technologies include brackish water, seawater desalinization, wastewater reuse, treatment, and use of previously non-potable water supplies.
We may be able to get desalinated water to Houston, but the water that was previously coming down to Houston from Dallas and whatever areas, we'll have some of that, but they're going to have to continue to reuse that water at its source, further north and find a way, and we can purify it. I mean, the astronauts have been doing it on their flights for years.
There is no new water, there is no pure water,
right.
It's all been used.
New programmatic initiatives that reduce water losses or improve efficiency of use, or develop new supplies such as brackish water and the water produced from or used in oil and gas production, should also be considered. Advancements in water system monitoring to detect leaks or ruptures, and a host of other techniques and strategies. New technologies, such as desalinization of seawater and brackish groundwater, must be carefully considered and evaluated. Where appropriate, those technologies should be incorporated into water planning recommendations. Planned water reuse, or the practice of reclaiming water, has been around in Texas since the late 1800s. While initial uses were primarily for irrigation and agriculture, today reclaimed water is used for a wide range of beneficial purposes, including power plant cooling, commercial and municipal irrigation, river and stream flow enhancement, natural gas exploration activities, industrial operations, and augmentation of drinking water supplies.
Can we move our new development of surface water supplies forward in a way that we could actually see meaningful construction of facilities and put those facilities into service sooner than 15 years or 20 years? We have viable sites. We know the technologies. Stakeholders are aplenty, regardless of what site you're looking at. Does the legislature have a role in streamlining our ability to bring new reservoirs into service? I think yes. I would also like, maybe it's not the legislature's role by statute, but somebody needs to provide that aspirational leadership.
Water utilities in Texas have adopted or are pursuing a number of relatively new water management technologies, but the use of these technologies is not widespread. The state should support the evaluation and initial implementation of new technologies that increase water efficiency or enhance supply. This support can include financial incentives, prioritization in the funding process, public education, the facilitation of regulatory decisions.
In San Antonio, that there really isn't a shortage of water in Texas. There's a political shortage of water, which means you can't get to it because it's protected by any number of interests, whether they be political or regulatory or otherwise.
State-supported research activities should be increasingly directed to such innovation and coordinated with this goal in mind.
I don't even think it's the cost as much as it is the regulatory. We're doing stuff that it's new, and water people are very conservative, utility managers, etc. but we're doing some stuff that's not real smart, that makes it more expensive than it kind of needs to be. So
Today, approximately 45% of all recommended water management strategy supplies in 2070 are based on surface water resources, and just under 10% of new supplies will rely on groundwater resources.
we don't have a water problem in Texas. We have a storage problem.
And so I think there's a real opportunity to explore how we can move water utilizing our natural resources and even then contribute to the health of our rivers and streams by adding more water into those waterways.
And surface water and groundwater, on average, it's more than we could need for the next 100 years. The problem is it comes at the wrong time. We have the floods. It's really just the management of the supplies we have.
The fact that we have a state water plan, the fact that we've got a mechanism for funding the state water plan like the SWIFT fund, the fact that we've got regional planning that's done on a consensus basis at the regional level, all of that is very unique and something I think that Texas should be proud of.
It's not a technology issue. We know how to clean it up. We know how to desal it. We know how to move water around. The real barrier is political and regulatory. Water's been too cheap for too long, and it's kind of hamstrung us on applying technologies to make water more available.
There's just limited water. There's no excess water that's unclaimed or unidentified or undiscovered in the state. One minor exception might be desal water. It has its own challenges on energy and the discharge of the effluent.
There is a great need to educate the public on the emerging urgency of our state's water resources. Improvements in water infrastructure and greater investment in water management are necessary as the scarcity of water increases.
You don't build reservoirs now because water evaporates. And so that's not a smart thing to do. Or if you do a reservoir, you have to put it in an area where it rains, which would be East Texas or South Texas, which is where there's plenty of rain. So then you still have the problem, or how are you going to move it from South Texas, East Texas to other parts of the state?
In the state water plan, the Texas Water Development Board outlines recommended water management strategies that will be used in addition to existing resources to provide needed water through 2070.
Our group was created in 2005 to advance alternative water supplies in Texas by funding research and demonstration projects and also conducting public outreach.
In serious drought conditions, Texas does not and will not have enough water to meet the needs of its people, its business, and its agricultural enterprises. In order to maintain a reliable water supply, we have to develop new water supply projects, such as desalination facilities, wastewater treatment plants, as well as fund conservation and drought management programs. Reusing the recycling water can offer tremendous financial and resource savings, especially where water is reused on site.
It's difficult for your policy makers to move to things such as appropriate pricing because they have to be reelected. And this is a tough piece of making changes.
If we fail to make adequate investments by 2070, about 80% of Texans would face water shortage of 10%, and about a third of Texans would have less than half the water they need. This means that workers could lose $151 billion annually by 2070. This translates into 1.3 million jobs lost.
The Texas Water Development Board is a technical and financial resource for the public. We have a range of information from groundwater, related to groundwater, such as well data. We have surface water, flood conservation. We have also agriculture and information on alternative water supplies. There is no one-size-fits-all solution, and one water management strategy or technology may not address all the water needs for a city or region. So having a diverse portfolio will help the city or the utility to adapt to their needs and be drought resilient.
It would seem prudent for both the public and Texas's economy that decisive action be taken to enhance efficient use of water, develop more drought contingency plans, and provide additional water supplies as needed. We can do better.
The hope, faith of river life is that we find we are organized by a much wider realization of presence. Thoreau. These motions everywhere in nature must surely be the circulations of God. In the expansiveness of summer, on the other side of a harrowing year, we're learning to be at home in the possibilities of new circumstances. Plenty is underway. A pitchy melody begins to surface through static, crickets, and rhododendron near the compost, while a hornet sows violets through the deck rail. My father cuts the engine, and we drift under the bridge 100 times. We are immersed in music that's like no music I've ever heard before. John Cage in Themes and Variations. Music equals no music.